Coming up on today's episode of Airborne Unlimited, military jet team leaders speak out against ATC privatization. ICAO backs global drone registry. Congressional attempt to block KSMO closing deal shot down by local rep. Hello, I'm Laura Hudson. It's September 15th, and this is Airborne Unlimited. 6 former team commanders of the USAF Thunderbirds and U.S. Navy Blue Angels are forcefully opposing legislation that would privatize US ATC services. In a 100-second video produced by the International Council of Airshows, the 6 former team commanders urged their fellow citizens to contact their congressional representatives to tell them to vote against H.R. 2997, which is currently being considered by the U.S. House of Representatives. In addition to these 6 highly respected former military pilots, nearly 150 aviation organizations around the country are also actively opposing the legislation. This is a deeply flawed piece of legislation that is opposed by the vast majority of people who understand the negative implications of this naked power grab by the airlines and their allies, said John Cudahy, president of the International Council of Airshows, the organization that produced the video. These former military officers are speaking out because they are genuinely concerned that the legislation could permanently damage our country. This could get ugly. The ICAO is backing an effort to create a single global drone registry with a goal of adoption of common rules for flying and tracking UAVs. The idea will be discussed at a symposium planned for September 22nd through 23rd in Montreal, according to a report from Reuters. Stephen Creamer, director of ICAO's Air Navigation Bureau, said that the single database would become a one-stop shop to remotely identify and track drones and their operators. The ICAO could become the operator of such a database. However, it is likely that users would balk at such a registry. The FAA's database was successfully challenged by a drone user earlier this year, and it was deemed to be illegal under current FAA regulations. The symposium will also cover issues such as geofencing, which is designed to prevent drones from flying in areas where they are restricted or prohibited. Creamer said that drone manufacturers are concerned that there will be a patchwork of standards in different countries, and they will have to make their product comply with multiple sets of regulations. After the break, congressional attempt to block KSMO closing deal shot down.
Progressive Aerodyne Sea Ray Adventure offers Rotax 912 power, a basic instrument panel, and radios. Fly it away for under $120,000. Visit searay.com for more details.
Welcome back. An attempt by a Louisiana Congressman to pull funding for an agreement to close Santa Monica Airport using the appropriations process has been stymied by another member of Congress who represents the California city. Congressman Ralph Abraham introduced an amendment to an appropriations bill that would have pulled funding for implementing the agreement worked out by Santa Monica and the FAA to shorten its only runway and fully close the airport by 2028. The process of shortening the runway is already underway. The amendment sought to block any funding to administer, enforce, or implement in any manner. The agreement saying that the federal government has a responsibility to maintain the nation's airport infrastructure, according to a report from the Santa Monica Lookout. Shortly after the consent decree was approved, Abraham wrote a letter to the DOT and the FAA saying that the agency's congressionally authorized mission includes ensuring that airports remain safe and efficient while also protecting our entire aviation system. But the amendment was denied. The move to beat back Abraham's amendment was led in Congress part by notoriously anti-aviation Representative Ted Lieu. It's Friday, and that means it's time for ANN CEO and Editor-in-Chief Jim Campbell to check in with his weekly barnstorming commentary. In 2 recent hurricanes, the unmanned and GA community stepped up in a big way and have much to be proud of. Here's this week's barnstorming.
Thanks, Lauren. Hi, folks. It's been an interesting couple of weeks around here as we prepared for a hurricane, reported on another, and then, of course, dealt with a hurricane ourselves. Not the first time we've done that, but it certainly had the potential to be the worst we'd ever dealt with, although some years ago when I was still living in Polk County, we had 3 come over the same area over the course of a couple of months and did a fair amount of damage. This, however, was a ferocious storm. Like Harvey some days before, and Irma that literally just got out of our census this week. Tremendous amounts of damage were done. People's lives were disrupted, in some cases destroyed, in many cases ruined, and certainly disrupted. And the world saw a whole community of people coming together to try to help. One of the stories that hasn't been told often or enough or well is the fact that general aviation and the unmanned community stepped up. They didn't just step up, they showed up. They got involved. They were passionate, they were responsive, they took expert guidance, they did what they were told, they didn't get in the way, and they did a great job. Now, for all the warnings about unmanned, I gotta tell you, yeah, there were some problems, but there are always problems because in every world there are jerks, and the jerks were jerks. But don't even think that this wasn't an opportunity for the unmanned community to show up, be seen, be counted, and be recognized, because they did. There is a tremendous amount of data we've never had before, because in Texas and Florida, drones are getting significant amounts of data to elected officials, to emergency management agencies, to local governments, and to homeowners and their insurance companies, and helping them make plans for a recovery in the future. And general aviation, no matter who it was, there are tremendous opportunities out there for GA to step up, and they did. Operation Airdrop, so many others, great people taking everything from simple little Cessnas on up to biz jets and the like. They showed up with supplies. They got people to medical attention. They got folks to their relatives. They got them to shelter. They did everything they possibly could. And I got to tell you, one of the things I'm really looking forward to doing in the next iteration of Aero-News, we call Aeroverse, is finding a way to build solid coverage about GA's tremendous contributions to the world at large, so that the world not only recognizes, but will never forget, that a lot of the help that they receive in a time of crisis comes from those people who fly those silly little airplanes. The ones they complain about, the ones that are too noisy, the ones that get in the way of grandma's airliner, whatever the typical hyperbole is. They have to know that these were also the folks that stepped up, got them away from harm, brought them food, brought them medicine, brought them supplies, brought them baby food, took their pets to a safe area, but never ignored the tragedy in front of them, and brought relief, recovery, and rescue instead. God bless general aviation. God bless the unmanned community. We are an amazing community, and it's my firm intention to make sure that story gets told. For the Aero-News Network, Airborne and Aero TV, I'm Jim Campbell. Amazed at all of you, and thank you.
After these messages, French team wins Gordon Bennett.
There's a difference between charting a steady course and pushing for the ceiling. And for nearly a century, Hartzell Propeller has been defining that difference. It's in our passion for engineering and research and our dedication to testing the limits of performance. We are built on honor. We are Hartzell Propeller.
The Bristol light sport aircraft is what you are looking for. The Bristol is wider than a Cirrus, faster than a Skyhawk, offers more storage than a Husky, and comes standard with Garmin avionics. So what are you waiting for? Visit Bristol.com to find out how you can get into a Bristol today.
Welcome back. With so much news coming out of the aviation industry, we're summarizing some other interesting stories in a brief segment we call Around the Patch. French balloon pilots Vincent Lays and Christophe Hoover won the 61st Gordon Bennett Cup over the weekend of September 8th through 10th. The Gordon Bennett Cup is the oldest and most prestigious gas balloon race in the world. The pair traveled 991 nautical miles, having launched on Friday from Gruyers near Fribourg, Switzerland. 21 gas balloons took off on Friday evening to compete in the race, which sees gas balloon pilots fly through the night over several days. Indian carrier SpiceJet is reportedly looking at adding seaplane amphibious operations to its portfolio through a deal with Japan's Satoshi Holdings, the owner of Idaho-based Quest Aircraft, which manufactures Kodiak airplanes. Satoshi Holdings is also a parent firm of Satoshi Seaplanes and Skytrek Airlines, both used in Kodiak 100 airplanes for their operations. The U.S. DOT IG has determined that no enforcement action will be taken against United Airlines for an incident in which a passenger was dragged off an airliner on April 9th. In a letter to the passenger rights advocacy group Flyers Right, the IG's office said that it had determined that the airline did breach some of the DOT's oversell rules, but an enforcement action is not warranted. 3 C-17s from Joint Base Charleston, South Carolina and Dover Air Force Base, Delaware flew more than 300 doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals to Orlando, Florida, September 9, 2017, in anticipation of Hurricane Irma's landfall September 10th. The mission came at the request of the Department of Health and Human Services, which is coordinating the federal medical and public health medical support to states and territories impacted by one of the largest hurricanes in history. A plan to manufacture a new version of the CL-415 water bomber in Calgary, Canada, has been approved by the Viking Air Ltd. Board of Directors, which analysts say can bring up to 900 new jobs to the region. That could be an economic boom for the city, which is currently struggling in the face of high energy prices and high unemployment. Well, that's it for today's trip around the patch. Now let's move on to the rest of the news. Pipistrel, in cooperation with students of 3 universities, has developed the first charging station for electric airplanes as a part of the project on Create a Path to Practical Knowledge, which ran from February to June under the mentorship of Vanya Koch, Ph.D. The goal of the project was the production and installation of a charging station for electric airplanes, because the need for a stationary type of charging has been shown when charging electric aircraft in practice. The charging station was developed by LECAD laboratory development engineer Alias Pelican and software engineer Kurt Gorup, and students from 3 universities. On August 30th, 2017, the electric charging station was officially turned on at Pipistrel Company and used to charge an electric aircraft, Alpha Electro. The project was co-financed by the Ministry of Education, Science and Sport and the European Union from the European Social Fund. Well, that's our program for today. Remember that Airborne Unlimited is streamed daily Monday through Friday with additional breaking news bulletins for important stories that fall outside of our normal deadlines. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and do check us out on Facebook and Twitter. Get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. Have a great weekend and see you Monday.